Who's the PCC Lancer? Is that our student trustee?
No, that's, oh, go ahead. Alex, do you want to?
Yeah, this meeting is streamed on YouTube. PCC Lancer is a support team that gets the streaming set up.
Oh, I see. Well, it looks great.
Yeah. All right, you're good to go, Trustee Kwong.
Okay, let's go ahead and open up the agenda. It is Wednesday, October 5th of the Board of Trustees Accreditation Board Policy Review. Let's go ahead and take roll.
Okay.
All right. Trustee Martin,
I'm here.
Trustee Gibson,
Here.
Dr. Androgenis,
Here.
Ms. Colross,
Here.
Mr. Bucklehide,
Here, thank you.
Mary Thompson in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
I'm Christine Kwong, Trustee Kwong. Okay. Number one, any public comments on non-agenda items?
No such comment.
Very good. Number two, we have approval of the minutes of May 13th, 2022. Any discussion?
So I'm just going to offer that since none of you were on this committee in May, you could all, just abstain and it just goes through because there's no, you weren't here.
Okay, yeah.
But glad to have you now.
Yeah.
So should we abstain on approving the May 13th minutes?
Well, yeah, and I think just you all abstain. It's not that they're being rejected. It's just that none of you can vote on it because you weren't here.
Oh, we have a new participant.
We do.
Trustee Gomez. Here.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. Okay, very good. Let's go to item number B on the agenda. Up for review is Board Bylaw 2340 on the agenda.
Okay, and we turn it over to Crystal to talk to us about that.
All right.
Oh, okay. Alex, do you happen to have them or do you want me to pop it up on the screen?
Why don't you go ahead? I will give you permission. Pardon me.
That's nice of you. Thank you.
There we go. You should have permission.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing that the suggested revision that I'm making is to cross out this line right here because we have no administrative procedures for this board bylaw. There are none that exist. Everything that we need is contained within the board bylaw.
Okay. That sounds like a reasonable proposed revision. Okay. Anything else?
I am changing the pronouns where we say he or she to either them, they, or their where appropriate. So you'll see the crossouts. Let me see if I can find one like here. As a benefit or any suggestions on which they may have. So I've gone through and adjusted those throughout the bylaw.
I do note that I have seen a trend in district policies, even though the pronoun is plural and it refers to a singular, it is a trend. And if PCC would be interested in following in that trend as we go through all of the policies to be more progressive, I don't have any strong opposition to it, although I do note that it is not the most grammatical format.
Yes, I have had to get past my grammar challenge on that one because I want to respect and honor how people want to be referred to, and it's also the 9th grade diagramming sentences in me is challenged, but yeah.
I had to fight this too, actually. So I just wanted to make sure that when we do, I think you indicated at some point that not all of policies are up for review, but perhaps maybe you can assign somebody to just go and change all the pronouns now on them so that they're just consistent throughout. And not just the ones that come before the committee, but all of them, so we don't have these inconsistent policies dangling around.
Right. Crystal, what are your thoughts on that, since you would be the one doing it?
Oh,
Well, I actually really appreciate trustee Kwong making that suggestion, because normally I would wait until each of them came up for review to do that so that no one got upset. But if she's giving me the permission to do that, I would be more than happy to go through and make those changes.
That's great. Okay.
should we, is this something that we should open up for discussion and take a motion on, though?
I would like to thank you, trustee Kwong. I believe it's not just progressive, but it's inclusive of students who identify as LGBTQ plus and prefer that their
Yeah.
identity be referred to as they, them, theirs.
Yeah.
So I think it's, yeah, thank you. I just want to express that on behalf of students who identify as so.
Oh, thank you so much for those comments. That's very, I appreciate hearing that.
As a matter of proper procedure, I would think there's one of two ways this could happen. One way is that the superintendent president might just, if it's, might have the authority just to make that recommendation. And if not, then the proper authority would need to come from the board to do that. And this committee could recommend to the board, to the full board, that the policies all just go through for that grammatical change. I could go either way on that. I don't know that this committee has the authority unilaterally to do it, nor any of us as individual trustees, other than suggesting to the superintendent who might. So I could go either way on that, whatever the rest of the people feel is within the proper jurisdiction. But those would be the two avenues that I would see.
Trustee Martin, I completely agree with you, because on the agenda is only 2 policies. And I think it is outside of our jurisdiction. And I agree that perhaps the recommendation is that Dr. Androjonis work with our chair to put the pronoun revision only on all policies on the agenda. And I guess now that we've opened up this discussion, it would have to, I would recommend that it would be applicable to not just board policies, but on district documents. So that we don't have inconsistency. And also we're sending them, it's messaging as well. And I think that would be a great idea to put on the board agenda, because that is a very, the impact of that is big.
So are you suggesting it be an action item on the October agenda? Because that's how I would envision putting it on the agenda. Is that your sense too?
Yes,
Okay.
and yes, and also like to hear from Trustee Gibson too.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay,
Great.
but not just board policies, but every document. Okay.
All right. Yep.
Okay. I had some comments on the policy, but also I know Trustee Gibson also has a comment on the policy.
Just a minor typo on item 2C. There's a typo in the policy.
Is that on page 2?
It's I don't know, probably since
No. It's on page 3.
Yeah, 2C.
Right here?
2C.
I see. Okay. Let's see if we can all find the typo. At any time prior to the post.
And it shall be done. Is it missing the it?
That a matter by placed on the agenda.
Oh, that a matter be placed on the agenda.
Here,
Yes.
I think I can just correct that.
Okay, that
Okay,
shall be done.
all right. Thank you, trustee Gibson. That was very good issue spotting.
Mhm.
I would like to raise some issues up for discussion on this,
Okay,
and I wanted to get your feedback. Some of it is just practical, some is not, is more substantive. So on this, if you could go to the first page on the first paragraph where it says an agenda shall be posted adjacent to the place of meeting. So are we posting our agenda on the door of the lounge where we are meeting? 'Cause
we are,
that's what it implies. I just want to make sure we're doing it.
no, actually, we have a posting place that is outside the C building. Is it possible, Crystal, that at one point, the reason it read that was that the board did meet in the C building?
Yeah, I think for a while they might have met like in the president's conference room.
Ah, okay, and then that wasn't big enough, obviously,
Yeah.
for a real board meeting. Okay,
So all we need to do is just,
But could I also make
nothing
one
wrong
more,
with your posting.
yeah,
one more comment? I think part of the issue here is that, when this was probably originally written, this language, we didn't have this thing called the internet where we put everything up.
Uh-huh.
So it was, and we also have copies of the agenda in the room at the time of the meeting.
Oh, okay.
So if we thought about it, we could, we could post it outside Creveling, but I really don't think anybody would look for it. Because most people are gonna go to our website to find the board agenda.
Right. I think the Brown Act requires us to actually put the agenda on the website and to actually literally post it physically at the PCC facilities. And so,
Right.
Well,
yes,
well, we do post it outside of the C building, which I think is probably the most logical place people would look for it.
and does that sentence adequately describe where you're posting it? Is outside the C building adjacent to Creveling Lounge? Because if so, then this is.
no, I think that's the point. The adjacent to the building, probably that's the part of it that needs to get changed because it is posted. It's just not next to the, yeah, it's not adjacent. So I think it's the adjacency piece.
Okay, so we
So
just need to revise that.
So probably it should read agenda shall be posted at least 72 hours prior to the meeting time for regular meetings.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. Okay. My second question is on the second paragraph where it says an agenda for the meeting shall be provided by the superintendent. That seemed a little bit vague to me, but now that you told me you're putting it inside the lounge, that's probably what you're referring to, is that you're having it available at the meeting itself.
I think it's there and the fact that it's now posted on our website.
I think maybe, so that's what you're referring to when you post it on the website, you're referring to that one sentence is satisfying that?
I think it satisfies that and the fact that we also provide it in the room.
Oh, okay. Okay. So an actual physical hard copy of the agenda is printed out for the,
Yes.
okay. All right. I got it. Okay. My other comment is on page 2.
Okay.
And it's the first sentence and the first paragraph, last sentence where it says, the board may take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. Do you see that word? I think that should be, instead of staff, it should be the superintendent / president because board members
yeah.
direct staff.
Yep. Good catch.
And the other revisions that I would like to discuss is really more about streamlining this policy because I think it's a bit detailed. And when you have too much detail, there's a very, very high likelihood of non-compliance. And now we're going to be violating our own policy because it has too much detail. And then that just creates more problems when you're violating things that details that really don't need to be included. So I'm just going to suggest some of these revisions and let me know what you think. So on the second paragraph, in the third sentence, it says, matters, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, matters placed on the agenda by the president of the board shall be so identified on the agenda with the general description, blah, blah, blah. And then all matters thus placed shall be designated as possible action or for discussion only. And my recommendation is that we delete all of that. And I'll give you my reasoning is, the Brown Act doesn't require a designation for the president of the board to be designated as somebody being identified for placing on the agenda. And it looks like we're not doing it anyways, and the law doesn't require it. So it's just more stuff that doesn't need to have more stuff, And then the other thing that was also confusing to me is, I think this section is talking about board members placing items on the agenda. And then this whole second page talks about placing it for, quote, possible action or for discussion only. And that seems to be more also extraneous detail, because usually in discussion, somebody is asking either informational only or they want to take action on something. And then the word possible action kind of implies that you can't take action right now, but it's possible action in the future. So I just wanted to bring that up as to what your intent was for that sentence.
Could you point that out to me where you read that in here, trustee? I know this is really thick in here.
I know. Well, first, that's the highlighted section that you just highlighted.
Yeah,
I'll read it to you. All matters thus placed on the agenda shall be designated as either for possible action or for discussion only. And the Brown Act doesn't require it, so most likely we're not going to do it. And it seems kind of extraneous to me, and it just seems very kind of limiting for a board member if they want to place something that they have to designate it in only these two ways. And I see it again.
yeah, that's what where do you see it again?
Oh, I see it again on it's a little dizzying moving this agenda up and down.
Sorry. I'll be a
go
little
up.
slower.
Go up a little bit. Go up slowly. Okay, there. Right there. Oh, I'm pointing to it. Can you see it?
yeah.
It says, I'll read it to you. It's in the middle of one. It says the request shall also specify whether the
Oh, yeah, I see it.
possible action or for discussion only. And I recommend that we just strike that out.
Okay.
And then,
Struck.
and then item number, now scroll down
Okay.
to 1D. So 1D, it says, notwithstanding Robert's rules, each requesting board member shall have the right to speak at least once. And I think that whole paragraph is extraneous, because if a board member is recommending an agenda item, they will be speaking at least once on the agenda. So it seems more like
Unnecessary.
taking up space on a policy.
Trustee Kwong, I noticed that Trustee Gomez has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yes, Trustee Gomez.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jonas. I just wanted to, well, y'all kind of have moved on already from the agenda thing, being posted in person or physical copies being posted. With associated students, we sometimes have physical copies because not all students have access to the internet, from home, so they're not able to necessarily print it. But I know that we have the monitor where we reflect the agenda. But I just wanted to suggest that, we usually have 5 physical copies for members of the public who join us. They're able to follow along. Then again, our boardroom isn't Krevling Lounge, so we have a much smaller monitor. But since we're speaking about Brown Act, I just wanted to point out, and I'm not sure if this falls under it, but the current live stream isn't listed on YouTube, so no one has access to it, as well as the last subcommittee facilities meeting. So I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, you mean when we are live, it's not live streamed on YouTube, but you can see it later after the meeting?
It's being live streamed right now.
Yeah, but it's unlisted, so no one has access to it. Just like the last subcommittee facilities meeting, I'm not able to go back. And I only noticed that the other day because we tried to discuss the mirror pools in Galloway Plaza. And I wanted to show the Associated Students Board the video that Richard shared with us.
Okay, Alex, could you follow up on that?
Certainly, that's an error.
Yeah, it should be there. So that I'm surprised and it just sounds like we had a hiccup. So we'll get that fixed, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much for your comments, Emmanuel.
Hey,
Ms. Ross,
Can I just say
Yeah.
one thing, Emmanuel? Totally appreciate what you're saying, but it would be great if you let us know sooner because we can fix these things. You don't have to wait for a full meeting to let us know.
Yeah,
I literally just noticed right now
Okay.
as I click the live streaming on the top left corner, and it mentions 2 people watching. And I assume the other person watching is PCC Lancer.
Mhm.
yeah, those are all good ideas. Thank you. So my recommendation is to strike out section D
Entirely?
entirely because it's talking about a board member having a right to speak at least once on an agenda item that they suggested, and they would normally speak out anyways.
Mhm.
And the same for item number E, which is, I'll just summarize it. Once it comes up for discussion, there are 4 options as to what they can do. Those are just kind of, they would come up in the board
Anyway.
meeting anyways, and so I feel that it's kind of taking up space
Yeah,
and it doesn't serve a purpose because it's going to happen regardless. You can make the motion as to what you want anyways. So my recommendation is to cross out all of E. And then I just have one more item, one more suggestion. The next one is the second to last page. There's it's in section A and it begins with the regulations and procedures governing such placement on the agenda. And there's section A. And right in the middle, oh, not that we cross it out.
I didn't.
This is about the public wanting to put something on the agenda. And it says that if the superintendent determines that the matter is not related to blah, 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 the person shall be notified by first-class United States mail within 10 working days. And I suggest that we put in there or via email, because I think
we were just talking about that. It's
were
very,
you? I
yeah,
mean, you're gonna eat, most people will email
yeah,
ways, and it just creates more work for your administrative staff. And more, more administrative work, and you could do the same with an email. And
we
I
totally agree. We were
Yeah.
talking about it before you got on the call. Like, don't you think we should do email? So yes, that
And we
would be
thought
awesome.
the same thing under B where they said they had to leave us a stamped envelope.
Yeah, no,
oh
We don't-
yeah, like
Yeah, we don't think they should have to leave us a stamped envelope.
yeah,
right, and maybe we should cross that out.
Or email address.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyways, that's all I see. Okay.
Any other comments? Trustee Gibson, Trustee Martin?
I don't have any other direct comment. You'll catch that received typo here in a second when you're all done.
Sorry.
I have some general comments, which I think, and I totally appreciate our committee chair and totally agree that less is more. And whatever we can scratch out, I think we're doing good in scratching it out. So just a touch of history. We wanted a mechanism for placing items on the agenda where obviously the public and any trustee can place items on the agenda that does not equate to involving staff time in long preparation. And so at one point we came up with a system where basically you could almost think of it as a first reading and a second reading, but not exactly the same intent here. Items were placed on agenda when requested by board members and or the public, and the person who placed it on the agenda explains their intent for why this needs to be discussed. And if the full board believes that the item warrants further administrative time, the full board directs the administration to do the study or the research or blah, 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 whatever is necessary to come back with a recommendation or to come back with a report. Sometimes those reports could be satisfied simply by issuing a written report. Other times, because they just want some information. Other times it actually has a discussion component or topic to it that lands it back on agenda. The idea here is that our superintendent and administrative staff time is valuable, and we don't want people on whimsical ideas directing that staff time, directing an enormous amount of that staff time on what might be considered a tangent by a majority of the board. So there was this idea of a more or less bringing it up on agenda to engage enough board support to constitute administrative time and effort to be put towards answering it. Again, many times people are just requesting some basic information. It doesn't need an agenda item. You just get them the information they need. It's 30 seconds, it's 5 minutes, it's no big deal. Sometimes people have really good topics that they want talked about. And before we dive in, I think we should have at least 4 members of the board agreeing to that this needs to get full time and attention. I can give examples, but maybe I'll stop there if that makes sense, at least as a concept of how to respect staff time, but also make sure that the public and for sure every board member has a way of making sure their topics can at least get a fair hearing. Do the rest, I'll look to Dr. and Jonas and to the other committee members. Does the idea of what I'm expressing, do you understand the concept behind what I'm expressing? That we want everyone to be able to identify things and speak to things. But what we don't want is a handful of people to be directing administrative staff into hours and hours of research on many, many things where there might not be a board consensus to do so. That's kind of the short version of what I was trying to say. So this, put anything you want on the agenda, and when it comes on agenda, whoever requested it, if it involves a topic, then you got to get to 4 votes that say it's worth the staff and administration to bring this up. And again, I'm not talking about, I need a copy of something, or I couldn't find this, or good comments that are made today by student trustee. This isn't available. We need to fix it, you know. Thank you.
So I have a question. So does that mean that something needs to be changed in this statement of this bylaw?
Well, I was reading it with this thought in mind, and I couldn't exactly equate, I could not equate anything in here that would require changing to facilitate that, as long as there was a general understanding of that's the intent. And it might be something where if my fellow trustees agree with this concept, we may want at least a brief comment in place, if it can be brief, because I agree with our chair, it needs to be brief, that articulates that. But see, I think one of the bigger things that was excluded in this policy, and I think is good, is that nowhere in here does it require the superintendent or the administration to do studies when people place something on agenda. Nowhere in here does it demand that if somebody puts something on the agenda, they have a right to speak for an hour and a half on it.
Right.
The parameters of how long that item will be discussed and the amount of administrative staff time is left out. And maybe for really good purposes, that leaves the superintendent and our board president or board chair a lot of discretion in dealing with these things in an appropriate manner, such that, because there's so many millions of different possible scenarios that we can't think of, that if either the board chair or the superintendent believe that the request requires an undue amount of time and attention, it could still be on agenda within the required time. It could still be given whatever time in the meeting is deemed necessary, 3 minutes, 20 minutes, more or less. And then at some point, if the board chair or the superintendent believe it, they might just politely say, this is going to require a great deal of staff time and study. If this is what the board is directing us to do, we'll do it, and we'll do it gleefully. But I'd like 4 votes that tell me to do it, just because it does involve that much time. They can say that, and then the board is at discretion on the agenda item to direct it. If either the board chair or the superintendent president believe this is a 3-minute, find the answer, dig up some old minutes, shoot it to the individual that's requesting or answer a question, they're just going to do it, right? So I think the way we have written this is sufficient for that. And again, commend our chair for trying to get as much of the extra verbiage out. But I also kind of want to express a deeper concept here that I think is important for good governance to all the members, that we do want to hear from the public and we do want to address their concerns, but we also don't want to set ourselves up. There have in times past been nefarious people using the agenda to harass the district. I mean, that's possible if you think about it, you know. The public is coming into our meetings. They're only 19 months old, but they're coming into the meeting. Whoa, yeah, those are pretty, very pretty. So I guess it's a public meeting. I have to let her in. So I think we've got the room to wiggle here, and I just kind of want to give everybody that backstory, that I think the superintendent president and board chair can deal with that by allowing these people the appropriate amount of time to talk. And if they're and we've got this clause in here about you can't bring up the same thing over and over and over again. I think there's enough room there. We just have to be comfortable, and I am, that between the board chair and the superintendent, they're going to handle all this. There's enough flexibility to handle all these circumstances as they arise. So I'm honestly not trying to direct anything different to the policy. I'm just trying to kind of give everyone a perspective of where flexibility is needed and why. And I think because of what it doesn't say, we have it.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, very good. So we have some proposed revisions to bring to the board for approval. Okay,
There was a typo in what was, oh, it's done. Oh, it's fixed. Never mind.
Yay, I got it.
very good. Okay. All right, moving on. Board policy 4700, Kate.
Ms.
Yes,
Chairman, I will move, we recommend this revised policy to the full board so that you can step in and say the committee approved this, made a motion and second and approved the recommendation. Just,
yes, to bring this policy to the.
yeah, so I will so move.
All right, any second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Very good, motion carries. Okay, thank you. Second policy 4700 Kpcc radio station. I see this is a really long policy and we'll,
Yeah, and it's gonna actually get shorter because,
it's really long, much longer.
yeah, it's long, but it's gonna get really short because we need to clarify that basically, we don't own the station, we own the FCC license, and we don't control what the station does. So I think the appropriate thing is for it to say KPCC FM is a full-time public radio station operated by Southern California Public Radio.
Okay, because the
Okay.
truth is, we do not supervise them at all.
No, we don't. So I'll work through this and then we'll go to the next thing. So KPCC, let's go to get rid of the comma and write is a full-time public radio station operated by Southern California Public Radio. And then it should be take out under the supervision of Pasadena Area Community College District, take that out from there. No, no, that, yep. No, and after district. So delete after district. Okay, under a Federal Communications Commission license issued to the Board of Trustees of the Pasadena Area Community College District. Period. Then you can delete one. You can delete all of them. Because what happens, you can delete the rest of it, because what happens with that, how they provide support to us and things like that, that's all in an MOU. That's all in a legal contract between the district and the radio station. So none of this other stuff really applies, because what's there is, sort of how they use our license, what, the fact that they hire interns, and you hear KPCC, by PCC at the top in the middle of the hour. Those kinds of things are in the legal MOU that we have with Southern California Public Radio. All that other stuff was true when we had the radio station on our campus and we controlled it.
So did you also want to add in here that the district shall enter into a memorandum of understanding with KPCC regarding, and then fill in the purpose of the MOU?
I don't know, is that necessary? We could.
Well, it kind of makes this policy I mean, people do, I'm wondering, why do we even have a policy if there's no
Thank you.
purpose for the policy?
Why do we
Unless-
have a license?
Oh, that's the holy grail. We're not going there. I am going to defer to, there's a long history here.
Uh-huh.
I'm agreeing with the chair here, but I'm kind of signaling that, following on what she said, the reason that we have a license at all, in my opinion, is basically items 1 through 4, in support of basically items 1 through 4.
Well,
That would be our reason for having a license.
so spelled out in the MOU is the fact that we do have a relationship with KPCC. We do have student interns. We do have promotional opportunities. We do have all of these things. Plus there is the operating money that comes to us that actually was determined to go to our foundation to support various things in the foundation, and that happened prior to me being here. So probably the easier thing is to go with Trustee Kwong's suggestion that we reference the MOU.
Well, you
Good.
can just put like a one sentence that says the district shall have or enter, this is,
Enter into,
don't type it yet, shall have or enter into a memorandum of understanding with KPPC to provide instructional, to provide support to
and
Right.
instructional opportunities.
Yeah.
and
Like just-
educational opportunities.
right, just one sentence so
Yes.
that it makes the policy,
Yeah.
so the policy has a purpose for its existence.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say educational opportunities and educational and promotional opportunities.
Yes.
The college.
Yeah. For the college.
employee
Yes.
promotional. Okay,
Yeah. So that's why you hear, go to go to PCC. KPCC is,
exactly.
sponsored by. That's why.
That's promotional.
Yeah, that's promotional.
I think that's a great sentence.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, I forgot to mention that, I noticed the other policy did not have a date on the bottom that says like last reviewed or last approved. But it's on the website though. The website has the date, but when you print it out, it doesn't have the date. So I just want to make sure that, the date's on there so people like to know when the last revision was. And for you,
Right.
'cause
We usually
you-
have that. Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons that is because when we went to board docs, it's now front and center. Whereas we used to just upload PDFs, so therefore we had to put at the bottom the last revision dates because they were paper documents that we PDF and then posted on the web. But with board docs, we can actually keep a whole history up there of when the policies were reviewed or edited or revised.
Oh,
And
and
it doesn't always come out when I print them, but I have copies, paper copies. Well, they're not really paper, they're digital copies that I use for revisions now.
oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah, I'm not trying to make it difficult, but that's why you don't see it on all of them. It's like, when did this one, because it was 2014, which was before we went to board docs and putting everything there, still has a date on it.
oh, I see. Okay,
The last one, on the other hand, has been revised since we went to board docs, so it doesn't have a date on it.
that makes sense. All right, thank you.
Can you help me with the rest of this sentence before we go?
Yeah.
So I don't get this wrong.
Yeah, the district will enter into a memorandum of understanding with Southern California Public Radio.
Can we generic that Southern California Public Radio?
I'm sorry.
Well, right now it's Southern California Public Radio and it's good for a period of time, but when it expires, it probably will be Southern California Public Radio again, but it could be somebody else.
I would recommend, for very public political reasons, I think, and a whole host of conversation that's happened over the last 3.5 years since I've been here, if we were to go generic, it would have a tremendous ripple effect.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just I'm just trying to keep the policy alive if things change, but that's okay.
And
I'm
yes,
good.
we can absolutely come back and revise it.
Yeah,
if
it's all
that
right.
Gets revised, but I really recommend against.
No, I'm not trying to pull the carpet out from under them
Yeah,
or imply that or anything. I was just trying to keep the policy good.
Yeah,
Circumstances change.
yeah, no, I appreciate that because it
Yeah,
is
okay.
work to bring things back. To provide educational and promotional opportunities to the college in, I think, yes.
How about educational opportunities and promotional support?
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
Because, you know, it's okay to get some money from these guys that we can use for programs.
right. For the college. Yeah. Okay. That's great.
Okay,
And just so trustee Kwong and trustee Gibson know, the board did approve the most recent memorandum of understanding. Alex, help me, was it at the June board meeting or May?
I can't say precisely. I'm happy to look it up. I want to say May or June.
Yeah, so it was recent.
Oh, look at all those stickers.
Okay.
I gotta go on mute. Hang on.
okay.
And also you were gonna change the number, Crystal?
Oh, yes, thank you. Sorry, I forgot about that. So when we switched our policy and procedure numbering system to the league's numbering system, they come in chapters. Chapter 2 is board bylaws. Chapter 3 is general institution. Chapter 4 is instruction. 5 is student services. 6 is business, and 7 is human resources. This one, for some reason, had a numbering of 4,700, and I haven't adjusted it, but I would like to adjust it to put it into the 3,000 chapter general institution, and then it would be board policy 3830, I believe, is what I'm going to change it to. Well, is that confusing?
No, it makes sense to me. You
Yeah.
want to make it consistent with what the state is doing, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I would,
And it made more sense when we actually controlled the radio station here and it was part of our a particular instructional program. So the 4,000s would have made sense then. Okay.
This was one of the best things we ever did.
Motion to, anyone like to move to approve this and to move it to the board for action? Okay,
So moved.
any second? All right, let's take it for a vote. Trustee Martin,
Yes.
trustee Gibson,
Yes.
trustee Gomez. Okay, trustee Kwong is a yes. Okay, very good. Motion passes. Okay. Let's move on to the next item, which is the accreditation update. Dr. Androgenis, do you have an update?
Okay, so I think the update is, you know, the other day at your board retreat, Bryce Harris did go over how the proposed changes to what will now be standard 3 rather than standard 4 in terms of the board relative to accreditation standards. So that's one thing. Just a reminder that those accreditation standards are up for discussion right now and for feedback from the field. And as I noted, I believe the other day as well, we were last visited in March of 2021. And at that point, we were deemed 100% compliant with all of the standards. And we received a 7-year reaffirmation. So we will next get visited in 2028. And when that visit comes, it will be different in a host of ways. The first way it'll be different is there will be new standards. And the second way is that the actual accreditation visit, the comprehensive visit, has moved from a process where a team, reviewed your institutional self-evaluation report, lovingly known as the ICER. They reviewed your ICER, and then a team of people descended on your college from a Monday to a Thursday, looked under everything, interviewed, did all kinds of things, to what's now known as a formative summative process. And Crystal, since you are in the process of a visit, would you like to talk a little bit, since you're in the thick of it, what you see as the primary differences between those two approaches to accreditation?
Yeah, thanks. It's actually really excellent. So I was in Sacramento yesterday meeting with the team that will be evaluating the College of Micronesia. And what we were doing yesterday, because our visit, if we were actually physically going to go there, is in spring. So what we were doing yesterday is developing what we call core inquiries. So anywhere we thought we didn't have enough information or not enough evidence, we develop what we call core inquiries, which we will then give to the institution now to give them the opportunity to provide us with whatever narrative or evidence that they have that shows that they are meeting the standards. And a lot of times what happens, and particularly I think when you were trying to write an ICER during a pandemic and you're a very small set of islands out in the Pacific Ocean, it can be very hard to coordinate that. So this is going to give them and all institutions the opportunity to correct anything that the visiting team sees prior to there actually being an official visit and there being the need to give them recommendations. So it's really, I think I see this as the commission really trying to work with all colleges to help them to meet the standards and understand how they meet the standards.
Okay. That's good.
And then the last update is just each college has a liaison from the ACCJC, and our liaison for a long time has been Gohar Mumjin, and she's fabulous, except that our counseling department just hired her sister to be one of our adjunct counselors. And because of the conflict of interest rules, she can now no longer serve as our liaison. So our new liaison is Kevin Bontabal. He's another one of the vice presidents at ACCJC. He's great. I've worked with Kevin on a variety of things, and I think you probably have too, Crystal. Sorry to see Gohar not be our rep because she's been great. And we also have a good rep, and we have Gohar's sister. So that's a good thing. I think we win all the way around on that one.
Yeah, one of the great things about Gohar is that she grew up in Pasadena, so she knew us for a lot of reasons. But good for us that we hired her sister. Her sister's very excited to come and work here.
Yeah. So are there any questions about accreditation? Because that was really the sum of just giving you a little update on that.
So if the next visit is in 2028, are we, when do we, or should we start preparing, to meet that accreditation visit? And
so there are two things. The first is that there's a mid-year report, there's a midterm or mid-cycle report that will be due for us in 2025, I believe it is. And basically what we do is in that we give an update on where we are relative to accreditation. That will be a very short report because we were deemed 100% compliant with all of our standards, and we didn't get any recommendations. We got commendations. So basically it's here's where we are. And then usually what happens is you back up by about 2 years. So it will be in 2026 that we will start to really get into the planning stages of how we're going to approach compiling our ICER. But again, it's going to be a little different because there will be, if everything goes the way we think it's going to go, less than half the number of standards there were before. And it's a different format. So we'll have a better sense of what that process looks like as we get closer to it, but it's usually about a 2-year cycle prior to.
oh, very good. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone about accreditation? No one? Very good. let's move on to the next item, which is our meeting schedule. Should we try and set meeting dates now, or I kind of like the doodle poll option by Mary?
Yeah, usually it's driven by when we have policies and to review. Crystal, do you have an idea of when the next tranche will be?
Well, I have two that I know for sure will be ready by, I think I shouldn't say that, I'm always wrong about this. Should be ready by December is my hope, that I've started through the process. That's really all I have right now that are going to go, and I'll probably work through a few others. I have sent probably a dozen or more out to various folks on campus to do some review for me. For example, there's a transfer policy and procedure I sent out to Tamika Alexander, who heads up our transfer center, to take a look at. So if she gets that back to me, I'll be able to get it through the process, but the process is very long here. It requires, you know, multiple reads with different constituency groups who meet at different times. So for me, if I can get anything through in 6 months, I figured I did really well.
Okay, do you want to just let us know when you have a group of at least 2?
Yes,
Send
can
the
do that.
poll out. Okay, that'll be great. Well, thank you so much for taking the growing oar on that and keeping that organized and through the flow. Thank you, Ms. Colross.
thank you.
Yeah, Crystal's a rock star and we are so good. Let me tell you.
Okay, yes, it's hard getting into the weeds of things.
Mhm.
Okay, any other comments on that, on the meeting schedule from anyone? Any of the trustees
Doodle poll.
have a comment? All right, okay. Would anybody like to propose any future agenda items? Okay, trustee Gibson.
Yeah, I'd like to put on for a future agenda to talk about new board member orientation. I'd like to see as we can come up with some ideas for that.
Okay. Any comments, anyone, as to would one idea be to actually maybe have a draft policy on what a new board orientation policy looks like, or to, you know, propose what
So-
orientation could be?
So it sounds like maybe a more formalized orientation other than having trustees get introduced area by area to parts of the college. It sounds like Trustee Gibson, you'd like something that maybe, I mean, I did like that initial thing about how the board agenda is reviewed, but we haven't really done anything that technical. Are you thinking more technical in nature?
Yeah, I'm thinking like here's a list of things that would be good to know as a new board member.
Okay.
I'm coming to this from personal experience. I think that there's a list of things that might be useful to know.
Okay.
So there actually is a board bylaw on board education that I could bring back. And it does talk briefly in there about new trustee orientation, but we could certainly take a look at that and flesh it out more.
That's a good idea. We could have, we can flesh out a policy on board orientation, which is general in nature, but gives the superintendent the authority to put together a program. And then we can maybe either designate one trustee, or maybe in a superintendent with the trustee, to actually put together the program itself and then bring it back to us to show us what it looks like in fruition, perhaps.
So if you're interested, in the meantime, it's for bylaw 2740. It's called board education. And it is quite brief, but it does say some things about new trustee orientation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you like to,
There might be, I'm just thinking, we might have a policy that's a little bit broad and not very descriptive, but ask the administration to work with some of maybe the newer trustees to come up with the administrative procedures and then have those procedures presented to the full board for suggestions, reviews, and other ideas, because I can see as time progresses, some of the needs are timeless and some of the needs are going to change. And rather than trying to embed it in this big board policy where where less is more, the real policy is we want a process where new trustees are as well informed and educated and orientated as they possibly can be. I mean, that's pretty much the policy there. The important part is how, and keep that fluid so that it can be quickly revised without a board vote and get everybody's input. So I think it's timely and I think it's well brought up. But my angle of attack would be for us to be a little broader, but then ask the administration to come back with some juicy details that especially the new people can add to. And then we have, hey, there's a good program there going and we like it for the next time.
So would you like myself and Dr. Antonos and probably Alex to work on an administrative procedure for that board bylaw that it fleshed out your juicy
Yeah.
details?
I would say that we want a policy that articulates the big agenda that we just articulated. We want new trustees to have a way to be brought up to speed quickly and orientated and well informed and all that and all this. But then, yes, absolutely. We'd like to see some administrative procedures that we can all comment on to give you good direction to make sure that it actually happens.
The one thing I caution on is, I always have the philosophy that less is good. Because the more, the thicker your APs and policies, the higher likelihood of non-compliance. And then the people in management lose discretion to meet the needs of changing needs through time. And then you now have a very detailed, stale, static policy that's too specific, and then you're just not going to follow it. Now we're constantly revising things for that doesn't really serve a purpose. So I agree that there should be something in writing, like a board policy, that there is a board orientation, and then something to the effect of to be determined, and then leave it at that. And then just have a group of people, like as Trustee Martin was saying, you put it together, but it's a moving board orientation depending on who needs the orientation.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think Trustee Martin was saying that also, that we.
Yeah,
we
I
don't-
was, and I like what you said a lot. Yeah, less is more across the board. I just felt like Trustee Gibson had a few things in mind that he wanted to share that are important, and there might be a way to generically capture those to remind us that, you know, I'm not like, as of, for example, maybe this is too detailed, we'll be given a financial review of the district or something general that reminds us all that, you know, the PCC budget is a pretty big, awesome document. And we're getting all these things being funded by this and that, and how do we know what we're looking at, right? So but I'm right with you too. No, I just was trying to meet his what Steve was thinking, exactly right where you're going, Christine. I like it. Less is more.
Okay, very good. All right, so Ms. Colross, you kind of have the idea of where the parameters or the boundaries of the next steps.
I'm with you.
So great, we're reading each other's minds. Okay, very good. Anything else? Any other proposed future agenda items anyone would like to propose? So for Ms. Colross, maybe for that next, I kind of mentioned when you get to 2 policies, bring it up, but include this one in there. So if you get one more, that's 2. And then we can have our next meeting.
I will do that.
Okay, very good. All right. Okay, having no other items left. So let's go ahead and adjourn.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. See you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.